Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. We're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of the duviri paradox. Um, the more I play this, the more I think this is probably one of the more influential releases that we're going to have. This is the first release that is more or less 100% under the new regime after Digital Extremes kind of split up to dual task Soulframe and Warframe. So this is our first look at basically what is going to be the gameplay style of Warframe going forward. And they have made some massive quality improvements compared to like what we've had before. Again, this is going to be very little spoiler. I am going to talk about like the card system a little bit, but the quest was good. Uh, it's not the best quest. Like obviously, if you know Warframe quest lines, like the quests that are like the top two, top three, are still that. But the quest line was very good. Um, doesn't leave a lot of hint at where we're going. But the thing that I actually wanted to talk about is just sort of how polished the setup is, especially if you're playing on solo. Obviously, in traditional Warframe release fashion, there's some network issues. But if you've been playing solo, you have been having a good time. Um, so first and foremost, uh, I'm guessing they took some feedback from the community. It's been 10 years in Warframe, and the fact is there are now default examples of what a build is supposed to look like. We'll go take a look at it. Very minimal spoilers. I'm just going to go to the loading area. But for the first time, there is actually an example of a default loadout. For new players will see a room like this. But when you go and say, look at the configure for Inaros, which is what I got now, would you look at this? An example of a build for a new bro that doesn't have the frame. And because of the game mode that this is in, this actually isn't the worst possible thing. Right? Like, this is pretty solid. So, the fact that we now have default builds for frames, and say for a weapon, what do we got? Sporthrix, Kuvazar, Secure Electa, Dulzoran, Kama, Vasto. Bad selection. But okay, so let's look at this, because I don't have this weapon. I have the Akvasto, I don't have the regular one anymore. So the only thing you see is the default mods, right? And this is the mods that a new bro who's just started playing the game is going to see. So for the first time, new bros are actually going to get put in their face a proper mod selection. Obviously, it could be better, but the fact is they're going to get to see what a mod config looks like. They're also going to have to deal with intrinsics, leveling, even on top of all of that. The card system is going to allow a new player to experience conditional mods. They're going to get to see what affects their damage. They're going to see that, like, bonus damage after reload with a headshot, and like bonus damage, it's on cold for the card, but you know, bonus damage with an element, so obviously that'll be viral, right? Once they get to the star chart. But they're, for the first time, a new player won't be completely overwhelmed and directionless by the Foundry and the mod system not explaining anything. They're going to get an example of what a build's supposed to be. I'm pretty excited. So like a new person going through this will have to deal with that stuff, and then you also have intrinsics. You have the Kaith. I have to upgrade mine, but they're gonna get used to this system. It isn't in the game too much, but that's a hop, skip, and a jump for the focus trees. So let's go over a couple other things. This is the first time I have ever just gone into the open world and spent 4 hours in a mission, right? I went in solo and I spent 4 hours in the open world just going through everything. So, and this is also the first time where I have intentionally turned on the in-game music instead of listening to like a playlist or being in like a Discord call, and I just played the game. So I can't endorse this open world enough. Do not treat this like a normal open world, like Plains of Eidolon or Valis. You can go spend some time here and just mess around doing puzzles. There's a bunch of other stuff to do. There's like little points of interest where you go and like you have to like fight off enemies and whatnot. But the map is gorgeous. Like you can get under the map and not in like you glitched through it. Like you can fly under the map and the entire thing is just gorgeous. It's a little bit of a ram hog, I will admit. But the map is massive. You can spend hours in it, just running around, messing around with stuff. But if this is the new direction that Warframe is going in, we're probably in good hands and going in a good direction. Now, this entire thing does appear to be more of a content island than, say, the other ones, right? Because there was always some bleed over. But this does like intentionally feel a little bit isolated. Even though technically we're on the Zariman, right? And half of the Zariman is in the Paradox, more or less. Like when the other half of the shift, when I go through into the duviri Paradox, I'm going into the other half of the ship, right? So it is kind of in the star chart. And this definitely isn't a continuation of the new war. It's something different. So the idea of this like heavily contributing to the story, probably not. But in terms of a showcase of how DE is going to approach stuff from now on, I think they nailed it. There hasn't been in the game yet, even like compared to the old one, which was basically nothing, and the new one, which is significantly better for the new player experience. If a new player were to start in the duviri Paradox, they would be significantly further ahead understanding-wise than a player that started with a Warframe. Though it does lead to sort of a weird situation, though, because like if they're starting with the Drifter, then what happens when you get to the Operator? And then the new war, right? Like, how do those two things work? Like, it's the getting the Operator probably wouldn't be too big of a deal. Where it's like, oh, you find your past self sort of thing. But what happens when you get to the new war? Like, who are you talking to? Right? So, maybe I could see some tweaks with the quest line. But I'm excited to see the direction. But seriously though, I can't I can't endorse this enough. And even all of the weapons are fantastic. When you look at it as like say the Sun and Moon, which is the mission reward, it's a dual Nakana, new type of weapon. It has its own stance, sort of like what the Hespar did for the Zariman. It's a great weapon. I don't understand why People are freaking out about it, saying like it's not that good. It's a great weapon, especially with the 3x heavy. Nothing wrong with that. Especially because the 12x multiplier applies to all of them. What's the problem? But the the issue is going to be is people were expecting like the next Nataruk. Well, the Cena's, the bow and arrow, is just as strong as the Nataruk. It's heat based. It's just as strong as the Nataruk. Maybe not crit wise, but it's got the same scaling and everything. So I don't see too much of an issue as far as the weapons. They all seem worthwhile to farm. They each have their niche. I'm trying not to describe what they do too much, but everything is worthwhile. I haven't gotten the first Incarnon weapon yet. I'm working on it. I'm doing the missions to be able to farm the resources for it. I have it unlocked. And then I did the Breton Vandal, Breton Prime, and the Prismascana is what I'm going to be doing. So pretty standard setup. Just get it out of the way. I got till Sunday to get it done, so 2 days, 3 days. But the fact is this is a very, 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 very solid release. And the repeatable content, it's actually fun. It's actually fun. And then you have the option of just running through the portal and it'll randomize everything, including your mods. That's some hard mode shit right there. I like that. I like that that's in the game. So the fact is this was a good update, and I think the most important thing about it isn't even the content they released. I know they're going to hate me saying that, but I think it's the philosophy of how they approach the new players and like the scaling and like the mission rewards, where the other open worlds was like, say you walk out of Cetus, you go do like a 5-part bounty, you go back to a node, like one of those tents or whatever, select your next mission, go do your 5-part bounty, 4-part bounty, go back to the same tent, 5-part bounty, 4-part bounty. This, you can just sort of wander through the open world and do stuff, which I don't mind. And if you want to do the longer bounty runs, there are decent bounties, and one of them always ends up with a boss. Or 2 of them end up with a boss. The other one's the circuit. But the fact is that in terms of philosophy, in terms of variety, in terms of DE working on repeatable content, I gotta say, I think this is a dub across the board. Any sort of critique you could possibly make is like some small nuance where it's like, listen, if you get 99.9% of everything correct, and like that last 1/10% is like, oh, network latency. Like, listen, it's a Warframe release, okay? Like, we're expecting that. I don't even think it's worth mentioning because it's sort of rules of the road with Warframe. We're not expecting a flawless release, right? But in terms of like new direction, even some like art style with like the other characters, open world layout, this is a big jump. But I'm not going to make this video too long, but I would highly, highly, highly recommend anybody that enjoys just exploring, and this open world is pretty worthwhile. I keep finding new places. There's even shit under the map. Okay? So the idea of getting through everything in like a couple of hours, you could probably get through it in like an entire day. But like there's a ton of stuff to do. I love the puzzles. It's definitely a great change of pace. It's not go and defend something. It's not go kill these enemies, even though that stuff is there. But like you can go through and like you have to like do like these puzzles, and then like obviously, so it makes it game of the year, right? You can pet the dogs. But it's just, even though there is some repeatable content, there is the Warframe formula. The fact is this is presented so wildly different. It feels like a different game. I'm not gonna say as far as uh, saying it's like Zelda, Ocarina of Time, but in terms of like the size of the map and like how you can go from like island to island, it's starting to get that feel, and more importantly, because there isn't actually like a city to group up at, because it's the Zeraman technically. I could see them adding like NPCs, like because they had this one quick mission you could do where you had to like collect cattle from for somebody. I could see them easily adding for each of those NPCs like a quick mission you could do and really filling that crap out. You know what I mean? Like there was like point defense equivalent, right? Like there's a lot of Warframe mission nodes that got rehashed a little bit. But man, and then you have like the upgrades, the card system. It gets really fun later in terms of like dealing with your character running around because it gets hard to control. But anyways, solid update. Turn on the music. Don't listen to a playlist. Maybe get in a Discord call, run around with some people, and complete the mission and farm at the end of it. If you're doing intrinsics, um, you can just farm intrinsics if you don't care about the resources, and you can just get the like the small missions that you'll pick up as you go through. They're marked. As you do that, the rewards from those do stay with you, and the game saves on the last decree, the last card point you get, where you can roll cards, right? So when you have that next one where you get a decree point where you can roll, the game auto saves. So as soon as you get one, like say you want to leave a meet like in like 30 seconds, you just do a quick mission, and when you get the decree, trigger it, and then you can just bounce. So yeah, no, spend some time in this. This was wonderfully done art style. The puzzles were good. The exploration's good. Um, and they definitely put enough space down where if they decided to expand this, they wouldn't have to do much work because everything is there. Like there's even like a bunch of buildings that aren't really used. Um, so if they really, really, really wanted to extend this out into something, I hope they take that direction, really flesh out the open worlds. I could see them doing it. But yeah, no, uh, solid expansion. Um, for those of you that were getting pretty bored with Warframe, this is a new enough take. Maybe check it out. I'm not gonna hard sell it because like if you've burnt out on Warframe, I'm gonna be honest, like you probably couldn't pay me money if I was burnt out on a game to play that game. But if you were just like, oh, Warframe's gotten monotonous, I want something new, this might be it. At least for the time being. Because you really don't use your Warframe too much. It's mostly spoiler mode, right? And even then, like you end up doing damage. So it's a nice interesting take. And it's roguelike, so start from scratch each time. Once you learn what the multipliers are, it makes upgrading way faster, getting stronger way faster. Once you learn what the quick multipliers are, so it's like bonus damage on first headshot, bonus damage to cold on crits, and added damage, and then it's bonus damage on first shot after reload. Gets you to a good amount of damage really, really quick. And then you can pick everything else, right? So anyway, yeah, no, just putting this out. I'm gonna hold off on doing any sort of like farm thing for this because really, really, honestly, the answer is is just go run missions. Like there's no, it's so much different than the other worlds, the other open worlds. I would honestly say just go play the game. Maybe do one of the quicker runs, and then at the end, you drop party and go farm, so you can get out with your shit. So unless they patch that, that's what I've been doing. You defeat the thing, right? You do the mission, you defeat the thing, and when everybody's at the exit portal, um, you just drop party and bounce and go farm, and then you come back to the portal and leave, right? So it is what it is, man. Um, yeah, no, this is a solid take. Anyway, small, easy update. 20 minutes, 21 minutes. No spoilers. Really go mess around in the open world. It's a good time.